Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Marky Picks. And today we got another team preview for our 2026 college football preview series. Today we'll be covering the Virginia Tech Hokies. So, breaking down their season preview, going over their schedule, looking at some of their offseason moves, additions. And we have a lot to talk about here with Virginia Tech Hokies as the James Franklin era is now getting underway. Lots to talk about. Can't wait to get into it with you guys again. Joining me with this preview once again is Deshaun from Belt to the Books, who will be breaking down these videos with me throughout these college football preview videos. So lots to unpack in this video. Before we get into it real quick, guys, if you guys can drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you guys are enjoying this series so far, and drop a comment down below and how you guys think this Virginia Tech Hokies season is going to go here for 2026. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the Virginia Tech Hokies 2026 season preview. Virginia Tech Hokies. Now, this one I'm going to have a lot to say about. So there is a lot of energy around this program, and for good reason, as they hired James Franklin. It's here. The James Franklin era has arrived in Blacksburg. After things hit rock bottom last year, this team made a massive statement by hiring Franklin as the head coach, and he has completely flipped this culture on a dime. He brought in Ty Howell as the new offensive coordinator, and he kind of single-handedly rebuilt this entire roster through the transfer portal in just a matter of weeks. I mean, just for starters, look at the quarterback room. They're handing the keys to Penn State transfer Ethan Grunkmeyer, a guy who already has major starting experience under his belt, and he has the ceiling to really ignite this offense. He was even smart. Franklin was even smart enough to go out and retain former Virginia Tech head coach Brent Pry as the defensive coordinator. So he was able to keep some of that defensive continuity here with this team. And if you guys don't know, Brent Pry was also James Franklin's defensive coordinator at Penn State for a few years, a while back. They also got a defense that returns some good players. You got defensive tackle Kamari Copeland, who is a monster inside there, the defensive line. So this is a team that's kind of deep right now in terms of their depth. They're very physical, bringing that Penn State mentality over here. But we'll see, because when you look at their schedule, it's a tough one. It really is. You got road trips to Clemson and Miami, and we all know Big Game James. It's a real thing. That ain't no myth. Go ahead and look up his stats. Kirk Signetti talks about Google me. Go ahead and Google James Franklin in big games. You'll get your answer. So, Big Game James in the ACC. We'll see. A new look for the ACC for James Franklin. It's going to work well, I think. And I'm going to hate it because, I don't want to wish the guy, terrible success. I want him to succeed, because he did great things for Penn State. He really did. Taking over the program, Penn State, at the time that he did, during all that crap that Penn State was going through at that time, he really rebuilt the program. He brought it back on the national map. So I'm going to be thankful for James Franklin for that. I really am. He got us a Big Ten championship there, okay? Got us to the Final Four in the college football playoff. But ultimately, he kept doing the same thing in these last several years. Really, every year that he coached, every single time he would make the same mistakes. We would lose the same games. And, at some point, you just got to make a change. Now, again, James Franklin, I love you for everything you've done for the program. But, I wish you nothing but the best at Virginia Tech. But you had to go. It's sad. It's the sad truth, but you had to go. And it hurts my heart that Ethan Grunkmeyer had to go with him. But, that's another thing, because I am a pretty big Ethan Grunkmeyer fan. Also, Luke Reynolds. I'm going to miss him as well, but I'm not mad at it because Penn State is very deep. So we got one of the deepest tight end rooms in the country. So I'm not really surprised that Luke Reynolds wanted to transfer. But that's besides the point. I think Virginia Tech is in store for a solid season. After what Virginia Tech's been going through over the last couple years, they've had pretty high expectations, but they just can't perform well on the field. But James Franklin, he's going to turn this program around. I think it's going to happen in year one because, this team right now is good enough to make a run. It really is. But their schedule right now is shaping up to have some spots where I think he's going to struggle. But we'll get into that here in just a second. We'll go ahead and let Deshaun talk about Virginia Tech's thoughts here for Virginia Tech in 2026.
Listen, I ain't got too much to say for real. He didn't hit everything on the head. He didn't had his James Franklin revelation. I'm just trying to let him land. That's it. But other than that, I also really like Ethan Grunkemeyer. I like that he had a bunch of games under his belt, a bunch of big games at that. Yep. He played in a bunch of big games and almost got it done. Almost. That's the main thing for me. And then now you're coming into a significantly weaker conference. I think some of those losses are going to turn into wins. I absolutely think that James Franklin can win in year one. He's going to bring back one of the most deafening environments in college football back to the national stage. Virginia Tech will be relevant again starting this year.
Yeah, I think they get the 10 wins. I do. I'm just saying off the bat here. I know we haven't gone over the schedule yet, but I think they're a 10-win team. Maybe 9, like we see down here. We were 9-3. Maybe I got them going to a bowl game, getting that 10th win somewhere. But we'll go ahead and dive into their schedule here. Week 1, they're taking on VMI. Another team that I'm pretty familiar on, SoCon team. I know VMI, the Keydets, very well, and I can tell you some stuff about VMI. I've been to their campus. They have one of the worst football fields I've ever seen in my life. One of the worst fields. Like, there's high school fields that are miles better than this field they have. I drove by it. There's dirt all over it. Like, it's not right. It doesn't look like a football field. Like, it looks like a prison, this campus, anyway, just for starters. It's a military academy, but it really looks just depressing here. So, I don't want to crap on VMI too much, but their football team, I can't see them having any kind of a semblance. I think Virginia Tech could put up 70 or 80 points in this game. They might even scratch 100. I'm going to go out there and say it. Virginia Tech might put up 100 points. I just don't. I don't even know if VMI's not going to score. They're probably going to. If VMI gets a first down in this game, it would be surprising. But Virginia Tech, welcome to Blacksburg game here for James Franklin. He's going to put up a big time number. He's going to run up the score. And yeah, just get an easy week 1 here. But what's about you?
Damn. Since we're just shitting on the Keydets, I've also been to their campus. I've also been to their stadium. It is pretty shitty.
Yeah.
But it does look like a prison there. It really, really does. And also, their uniforms are absolutely garbage. I don't like, if you're talking about you hate their campus, I really hate their uniforms. They're really, really ugly. I don't like they're the Keydets either. I never understood it. Whatever. Man, this is going to be an ass whooping. They are so lucky I cannot bet Virginia team. Holy shit. Team total over for Virginia Tech, over 70. They may put up an 80 burger, 90 burger. Yeah, this is going to be like freaking doomsday reckoning. It's going to be that bad.
Yeah. Well, James Franklin, he never was the coach to run up the score. Usually, like, when we get a big lead, we're always just running the ball. Run the ball is to get the game over with. We don't usually put up big scores, but maybe first game, new team, he wants to put up a big number. Surprise, make a statement in the media. Let them know this Virginia Tech team is for real. And, I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't. But moving on to the next game here, a little bit more of a formidable opponent, but still an opponent that I think Virginia Tech's going to mollywop here. Taking on ODU, Virginia Tech, again, back-to-back games, back-to-back statements. Big-time win here once again for Virginia Tech. I don't know how big they'll win this game, but I think they'll win this game by 30-plus points possibly. So, yeah, give me Virginia Tech here to go 2-0 here to start the season. Sean, what about you?
Yeah, this is a revenge game for Virginia Tech. They lost to ODU last season, but granted, they had ODU had quarterback Cone Joseph, I think that was his name.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he was really, really good. He transferred out, and I think he's actually at Wisconsin right now. So, big losses for ODU in that program. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Virginia Tech, get their lick back right here. This is going to be a demolishment right here. So, yeah, Virginia Tech wins big.
And then they take on a little bit more of a normal opponent here. You take on Maryland at Maryland. So a little bit of an old school ACC matchup here. And this should be an interesting test. But if you want to go through the records of James Franklin record versus Maryland, we destroy them pretty much in every game. I think they beat us one time back in like 2015, because I actually went to that game personally. I remember it briefly. We did lose that game, but it was a close game. We did lose to Maryland. I think that was our only time we lost to Maryland ever. But James Franklin usually does handle Maryland pretty easily. Maryland should be an interesting team to watch out for, though. They are a scary-looking bunch. You got Malik Washington at quarterback. We'll talk more in depth about Maryland when we get to their team. But Maryland's going to be a little bit of a sneaky team to watch out for in the Big Ten this year. But Virginia Tech, they're just a better team, in my opinion. They're better coached, even though I think James Franklin's one of the worst coaches you can have. But in these types of games, James Franklin does know how to handle things pretty well. So I think he's going to get the win here at Maryland. For familiar opponent, he's seen him a bunch of times. I think he's going to handle it pretty well. Deshaun, what about you?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Rinse and repeat. The one thing about this is, like I said, I just think Virginia Tech's roster is just much, much better. I think offensively, Virginia Tech can hang with Maryland. Maryland tends to have a good offense under Malik Washington, but I think defensively, Virginia Tech has the edge. Even though they're on the road, this will be their first test here. I just think Virginia Tech is head and shoulders the better team. And like you said, James Franklin and his familiarity with the Maryland program, having, pretty much given them BTA. They honestly might do it again. I think Maryland will flirt with a bowl, honestly, this season. But I just think with the momentum that Virginia Tech is going to have coming into this game, even though, yes, they played VMI and ODU, I think they'll be ready. I really, really do. Like I said, it's just the vibes around the program. It's going to be just so much higher this season, and it's going to translate into wins. And I think this is their first big win for the season.
And then they take on Boston College at Boston College after that. This will be their first conference game, and I think they get the conference game started with a bang here. Boston College, again, we didn't really have high hopes from this season. And again, Virginia Tech, I'm pretty high on. So I think Virginia Tech, coming off these 3 games, good momentum. They're going to come out here and lay it on Boston College pretty bad here in game 1 of the ACC. Deshaun, what about you?
Yeah, like I said, this is just James Franklin, tearing up bad teams. It's as simple as that. Like I said, I'm high on Boston College at the beginning of the season. This is week 4. This is where they're going to start fizzling out right here. So Virginia Tech is going to catch them at a really, really good time, and they'll pull out the win.
Then they come back home for their first home conference game, taking on Pitt. And there is some history here. James Franklin has played Pitt 4 times when he was with Penn State. We were 3-1 against Pitt. They did beat us, I believe, 2015. That was Barkley's freshman year. Barkley wasn't even playing that much at that point. That's why Pittsburgh beat us, because if Barkley was the starting running back, you could probably go back to say, James Franklin, why the heck are you not starting Saquon Barkley at running back as a freshman? A little bit of favoritism. I can't remember who we had starting running back, but I was like, we need to play Saquon Barkley every game. I don't care. I saw it right from the first handoff, I believe, against Buffalo. When we played Buffalo, I saw his first handoff. I was like, who is this guy? Get this dude in the starting lineup now. But it seemed like we waited to like half a season before we finally made the switch to have Saquon Barkley the full-time starter. And I remember watching that game where we lost to Pitt. It was some dumbass stuff that James Franklin did. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I knew like it was a close game. I believe Franklin was doing some dumbass stuff. It would make sense. I can't remember exactly what he did because it was so long ago. But yeah, we did lose that game against Pitt. But in the next 3 years after that, we absolutely slammed Pitt. They couldn't hang with us. That was when we were starting to get our national recognition. It was 2015 to 2016, 2017, 2018, I believe, is when we played Pitt 4 times. We beat them from 2016, 17, and 18 handily, pretty easily. That was during the Barkley, Trace McSorley years. So Franklin's got familiarity with this opponent. You guys know I hate Pitt. So it just makes sense that I'm going to take James Franklin to come out here and put BTA against Pitt here. So, Deshaun, what about you?
All I got to say is enter Sandman.
Yeah.
This is going to be, like I said, first ACC conference game at the crib. What more do you want from him? Yeah, James Franklin will have this team ready to play. And like I said, as you can see, these first 5 weeks, very, very favorable.
Yep.
I think, honestly, for real, if I'm being completely honest, 4-1 is like okay. I expect nothing less than 5-0.
Yeah,
nothing less. The schedule definitely did them a lot of favors this season, and like I said, you get Pitt at home. That's where you want them. Environment's going to be really, really nice, really, really hype. You're 4-0 coming into this game. Who knows? VTech might be ranked.
Yeah, they should be ranked by this point, I think, too.
24th. Who knows?
I think so.
They will be ranked just based off of that Maryland win right there.
Yeah.
The other one's not going to really matter. But then, like I said, playing a Pittsburgh team, it's only going to boost your resume even more. So, yeah, they're going to get a big home win right here.
Yeah. And then that's where things are going to take a turn. You take on at California, and, I'm just going to go back to what happened last year at Penn State when, after that Oregon loss, we hit the road and went to UCLA, and we got embarrassed. Bad. Our defense got shredded by Nico Iamaleava. We lost to UCLA. We then eventually lost to Northwestern. That's what led to James Franklin's firing. Okay? So, similar situation here. Not saying it's going to lead to James Franklin being fired, but Franklin going out west hasn't seemed to gel. I mean, we did beat USC 2 years ago at USC. It was an overtime thriller, but we were getting slammed in that first half. I'm honestly surprised we won that game. So I don't know if Franklin gets his guys right heading out west. Maybe with an ACC opponent, it's different, but I'm very high on California this year. I can't wait to get to their slide, but California, heck of a team. This should be a really good game, but I honestly think California, their offense is going to shred this Brent Pry defense because I know Brent Pry very, very well. I know his defense very, very well. Every time he plays an explosive offense, he gets absolutely shredded every time. California's going to eat Brent Pry alive in this game, and California's going to get the win here. So, Sean, what about you?
Yeah, like I said, East Coast traveling all the way West Coast. I mean, from Blacksburg all the way to Cali? Holy shit.
Yeah.
Those are the spots where you want to fade teams that are traveling. It's going to be Virginia Tech. This will be a ranked v ranked matchup right here.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Might be a sneaky game day game. Well, maybe. We'll see.
Maybe. Who knows? This may be a...
They both could be undefeated.
Probably, honestly. And like I said, if I'm Cal, I'm making this a night game.
Yeah.
I'm making it a night game. It's either a night game or a noon game. Simple as that. Do VTech dirty. But I'm very high on Cal as well. I think they're going to be really, really good here. And like I said, this is a really, really bad spot for Virginia Tech. This is kind of those spots where it's like hey, we're 5-0. We're feeling really, really good. Hey, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. They get punched in the mouth. They come back down to earth. It's going to do really, really good things for them. But just in this spot right here, especially with the travel, I think they take their first loss. Well, I don't think. I know they will take their first loss right here.
And it just makes sense, man. It really does. James Franklin starting the season off, beating the teams he's supposed to beat. Then he gets to a big game, and guess what happens? He loses once again. I mean, it just kind of makes sense that it had to go that way. So, yeah, big game, James. First time of the season. National media is going to be back on James Franklin. You're going to see the headlines. Big game, James Franklin loses once again in a big game with another team. He's cursed. He just is. I know it. Big games for James Franklin. He could literally dominate early on in those games. We've seen. I've been a part of it. We've been in big games. We've dominated for like half of the game, then we end up losing. I've been in games where we played big games. We get slammed from start to finish. It just happens that way. I think this is going to relive some of those curses James Franklin has here. California's going to get the dub. So moving on to the next game here, taking on Georgia Tech. They're back home now. Now, James Franklin, one thing I do say, he doesn't usually have losing streaks. He usually, after a bad loss, he usually does come out and respond the next week. The reason he got fired last year is because he didn't respond. That big loss against Oregon, usually we would go out and just destroy whoever's next on the schedule. He didn't do that last year. We lost to UCLA. We lost to Northwestern. But here at Virginia Tech, I think it's going to be different. After that loss against Cal, he's going to come back out here against Georgia Tech, get right a little bit. Georgia Tech, I do think they're going to be a good team, but new quarterback for them in Mendoza. We got to see what we got out of him. But I just think this is a get right game for Virginia Tech after that tough loss against Cali. And I think James Franklin's going to have this team ready to go. I think Virginia Tech gets the win here. Sean, what about you?
Yeah, thank the scheduling gods because, after a tough game all the way on the West Coast, get to come back home, face Georgia Tech. I think this is a nice get right spot. Hey, let's come back to earth. Let's be humble right here. Probably they might get dominated up there in Cal. So, this is the perfect get right game for them. Sure, is it a look ahead game to Clemson? Yes, but just being at home in front of their home crowd again, kind of get that national attention a little bit off of them so they can focus. I think they get it done here. It might be a decently close game, but Virginia Tech get it done.
Yeah, I like that shout. Probably after that game, maybe some of the pressure gets a little bit released, playing undefeated. Now you got a loss. Now you can play a little bit more free. I do like that shout there. Then they go play at Clemson, like Sean just said. And, again, I've got to follow the theme. Big game James shows up in Clemson. Clemson. This game's probably going to be a night game. We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if it's an early game. It could be either or. But either way, big game James, it's our thing. It's even more a thing when it's on the road. All right. And Clemson, there's going to be some interesting storylines to watch here because Christopher Verzina, quarterback for Clemson, James Franklin recruited him to Penn State. So that's interesting storylines to watch there. Also, Tom Allen, defensive coordinator for Clemson, served under Franklin during the playoff run a couple years ago. Okay, so some storylines to watch there in terms of that. But again, it's a tough game here. Playing at Clemson, one of the toughest environments in the country. It's just going to be too much for him. I think Virginia Tech takes the L here. Clemson will get the win. Sean, what about you?
Well, if you're not going to do it, I'm finna do it. Big game James.
Oh.
This is for you. This is for you. Silence the haters right here. I love this spot for Virginia Tech. This Clemson team isn't the Clemson team of old. Clemson has issues. I'm not as scared going to Clemson anymore. Something just doesn't feel right within that program. Completely different team. Yes, can they have things figured out by this point in the season? Of course. Is Clemson a tough place to play? Absolutely. But in terms of roster and stuff like that, is Clemson's really better than Virginia Tech's? They may be about even. I might even lean towards Virginia Tech. But like I said, if you're looking at the schedule, they have a bye right after this. So this isn't the typical, at Clemson, then next week at SMU to where you have a look ahead and you may mess around and lose both. But boom, you get Clemson and now you don't have to worry about your next game because you have rest. So you can put 100% focus on the task at hand. I honestly don't think this game will have any media attention either because of, with the things with Clemson. Honestly, for real, I think this is one of the games that James Franklin has sneak right under his belt. So, big game, James. James, he will get it done.
All right. Well, after that, Virginia Tech gets to their first bye week, and then they go and travel at SMU. Now, I mentioned big game James already multiple times. Another big game on the schedule for James Franklin. Traveling on the road to take on SMU. This is going to be a big game. No doubt about it. James Franklin, congratulations. You get your first big win at Virginia Tech. You go on the road at SMU, who, if you want to look at history, we just played them 2 years ago in the college football playoff in the first round. Same quarterback, familiarity. James Franklin played against them, knows how to game plan for it. And I think they match up really, really well here against SMU. I think Virginia Tech goes on the road. They actually dominate this game, get back on the map a little bit after this big win here against SMU. Big game James finally gets a big win under his belt. Maybe he can relax a little bit after those cursed 2 losses against Cal and Clemson. I got James Franklin getting his signature win, I would say, taking down SMU on the road. Deshaun, what about you?
Man, big game James. No. He will lose this game in dominant fashion. This SMU offense will be humming. It's very, very electric, fast pace. Playing in Dallas. Man, like I said, I'm very, very high on this SMU too. Don't think SMU forgot. They still own James Franklin's ass, but
they want that revenge.
They want their lick back. They're gonna get it here. What better way to do it than right here? They've been waiting, catching Virginia Tech off the bye. Yes, that's a really, really good spot for Virginia Tech, having the rest and then being able to fully focus for this game. But like I said, traveling, really, really big game. I think national television media will be all over this game right here than the Clemson.
I think this is a Friday night game, I want to say.
Oh, yeah. Prime time. Big game. James finna get fucked up. Back to his roots, like you like to say. He will not win this game. Give me SMU.
All right. So some disagreements there on those 2 games. Now we're heading on to the next game. Then they get to play Stanford here back at their stopping grounds in Blacksburg. And this should be a pretty good, solid win for Virginia Tech. Again, every time James Franklin plays a really bad team in the conference, you always handle them pretty easily. We never usually stumble, except for last season at Penn State. That was the only hiccup. Again, I'll keep mentioning that because, it's terrible. I probably shouldn't mention it. I don't want to mention it, but I'm going to mention it because how embarrassing it was. It's just crazy how you freaking lose to UCLA and Northwestern in back-to-back weeks when you had preseason number 2 team in the country. It's just a freaking shame. I can ramble on about that all day, but I wish I could use on Virginia Tech here. But again, playing Stanford, now I will say Davis Warren at quarterback for Stanford. He's a solid game manager, and I think he could cause some problems here for Virginia Tech for sure. I think his experience will play well. I think Stanford could be leading at halftime in this game, but I do think Franklin will find ways to pull out this win. It's going to be close. It's going to be closer than you would think. Okay. It just is. All right. I just feels that way. It's, I know James Franklin well. I know what his teams do. This seems like a spot he's going to struggle for a little bit. Second half, we all know Penn State is a second half team. This could be a situation where this is one of those spots where second half Virginia Tech wakes up after playing down in their competition in the first half. They wake up second half, take advantage here against Stanford, get the win. Deshaun, what about you?
Man, James Franklin against an inferior opponent. I mean, what better can you get right here? Virginia Tech will steamroll Stanford. Davis Warren over 1.5 interceptions. That's a free.
I don't know about that Brent Pry defense. I don't know.
Right there. Come on, we both know how Davis Warren is. Especially on the road at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech coming off of a loss for me. Coming off of a loss. They need to get their heads right. They need to lock in, man. They need to lock in. And what better opponent to face than lowly Stanford? I think this is going to be a big, big win for Virginia Tech. And like I said, you're getting Stanford in one of the spots where they got to travel cross country all the way to Virginia. It's going to be a really, really bad spot for them. Virginia Tech will probably blow them out.
All right, and then you got to move on to an actual big game. Now, this ain't no big game like we hinted, these other teams, California and Clemson. Not saying that Clemson and California are bad teams, but they're not the same level caliber as Miami, because Miami should be a top 5 team at this point in this season, and this is an actual big game. And you know what? I just typed into Google right now. Tell me James Franklin's record against top 10 teams. He's 4-21. Enough said there. I'm going to take Miami to get the win here against big game James. I think Miami overwhelms them here. I think Virginia Tech could play well for a half, like Penn State teams normally do. They in these types of games, they usually play well for a half, 3 quarters. Sometimes they have the lead in the fourth quarter, but they always do something stupid by head coach James Franklin, play calling, defensive play calling, whatever. It's the coaching that's going to let Virginia Tech down here. I wouldn't be surprised if this game is very competitive. But Miami, way more talented. And again, their offense, I think Brent Pry is going to be way in over his head here, calling defensive plays against this offense for Miami, because I think Miami's offense has the potential to be one of the best in the country, if not the best. Some of the weapons that they have, So I just think it's going to be overwhelming for Virginia Tech. They're going to play competitively now, okay? Because normally they always play tough in these games. They're never going to get blown out in any kind of these big games. They're going to be in every single one. But again, sloppiness, maybe some turnovers, play calling, head coaching decisions. James Franklin or Brent Pry will lose Virginia Tech this football game. Miami will pull out the win. Deshaun, what about you?
Man, big game James.
Big game James.
Hell no. You're not winning this game. But I will say, like I said, probably nationally televised. This game has massive ACC implications.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things on the line for this game.
Oh, yeah.
As Mark will constantly say, what will James Franklin do? He gonna fold. He gonna fold. He gonna crumble. And that's just what's gonna happen. Miami, head and shoulders, the better football team. The best football team in this conference. I'm just gonna go ahead and let it be known. It's not a secret. And catch them at home. Like I said, this is do or die time for Miami. They ain't got time to mess around, especially with Virginia Tech. Man, they're gonna come out here. They're gonna put a beating on Virginia Tech, put them back in their place. Even though it's sad to say, because Virginia Tech wins this game, and that's the limit. The sky is the limit if they win this game.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of the biggest game and this program's recent history.
Mm-hmm.
They will come short. Yeah, give me Miami.
I'm just thinking, what if James Franklin finally breaks the curse in this game? What if he finally gets that signature win like he got with Penn State in 2016 against Ohio State? What if he gets some kind of big moment to go his way? A block field goal turns into a touchdown. Something like that. Can he get some luck to go his way in any one of these games that we have him losing here? You know, maybe that could change this whole team around, and maybe they're looking at a ACC title. They're looking at a potential playoff berth. You know, it could happen. But I still think the James Franklin curse is real. I mean, I've lived it for so long. I just don't know if it's going to end here. But if it does end, power to him. Okay. Congratulations. You finally get it done at another program. If you can't do it at Penn State, you do it at Virginia Tech. What the heck's your problem, But, I digress. Let's go ahead and move on to the last game here of their season. It's a rivalry game, one of the biggest rivalries in college football. You're taking on UVA. Now, there's some big storylines for this one. I mean, it seems like James Franklin in every single one of these matchups has some major storylines, whether it's playing against former players that he recruited, playing against former coaches that he coached. This is another one of those spots. And I think this could be one of the biggest storylines because Virginia's quarterback is Bo Perbula. Now, you got a lot of people thinking about last year's Penn State team. Okay. I know this is a Virginia Tech slide, but it's pretty much a Penn State slide based on everything going on here at Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
But last year, if Bo Perbula was our quarterback instead of Drew Aller, I think we're a different Penn State team because that system that we had on offense last year, and really during the whole Drew Aller era, it was built for Bo Perbula. We had a system where it's a more of an option RPO type of look, not so much of a pocket passer, stand in the pocket type of system, our offense. It was a run heavy scheme with big playability. And I just think Bo Perbula would have fit in that system beautifully with the running backs that we had in Singleton and Katron Allen. I just thought that trio would have been deadly if Bo Perbula would have been the main guy. But of course, Drew Aller was going to be the guy because he's one of the top rated quarterbacks coming out of the country. And, of course, we're going to have more leeway for him to be the starter. But that was one of the more question marks of last year's Penn State team was the decision to just stick with Drew Aller. Bo Perbula transfers out, and you saw what he did with Missouri. He was pretty electric, had some great moments, and that was a Missouri team that was in the college football playoff discussion there, until Bo Perbula got that nasty injury. Now that's going to be the question mark for Virginia coming into the season is what kind of Bo Perbula are you getting? After that tough injury he had last year, how is he going to look? But in this game here, storylines to watch. Bo Perbula taking on James Franklin. Probably some revenge on Bo Perbula's mind because Bo Perbula probably thought he should have been the starter. And James Franklin didn't think he was good enough to be the starter. So there's going to be some storylines to watch in this game, other than it being a rivalry game. There's just a lot around this game. I think it's going to be a great game. Probably, I would go out of the way and say this is probably the best game of rivalry weekend. I think there could be fireworks here. So we'll see how it turns out. But I am going to give Virginia Tech the win here. I just think they have a better team. I am pretty high on Virginia, but I think Virginia has a lot more question marks on their roster right now, other than Virginia Tech. I think Virginia Tech's going to have better play style right now. They're playing better football, and I just think this is a pretty big game for Virginia Tech in terms of them getting the 10 wins. So give me Virginia Tech to beat Virginia here in the last game here in Blacksburg, which is another big key to this one. So, Deshaun, what about you?
Yeah, just rinse and repeat for me. Enter Sandman right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, love it for Virginia Tech. Senior day at home. What a way to put a cap on your season right here. Getting a win in terms of our predictions, getting to 9 wins in your first year. That will give you a lot of confidence, especially for a program like Virginia Tech trying to get back to relevancy. This will even help them in the future portal and recruiting and stuff like that to be like, listen, we are back to being that winning program. We're back to being that Virginia Tech team of old that was feared. When you got to come to Blacksburg, you probably finna lose. Like I said, this will be a great game, though. Two teams that are going to be going in opposite directions in terms of last season, in my opinion. Even though Virginia will still be respectable, this would just be a major turnaround for Virginia Tech. This is a Virginia Tech type of year. And I think James Franklin will get the win in front of their home fans. Like I said, if it was at Virginia, I'd probably chalk it up as a loss just because, home field advantage right here for these two teams, especially in the type of game that it is. I got to give it to Virginia Tech. But in terms of Bo Pribula and Ethan Grunkemeyer, I think Virginia has the quarterback advantage right here.
Yeah.
So, but also, side note, do you think Bo Pribula is better than Drew Aller?
Oh, no, that's a tough question. So in terms of talent-wise, Drew Aller's better, okay? He's got the size. He's got the arm. He's got one of the best arms in the country. But it just came down to the system for me. Drew Aller was not a good fit in our system. He needs that air raid style offense. Not an offense that's going to go out there and hand it to our running backs, a whole bunch of times, and then have some quarterback design runs for Drew Aller, which is just amazing to me. We were calling design quarterback runs for Drew Aller. It was sickening. Okay, not saying he was a bad runner, but that's just not what he does. Okay, not what he does. And I think Bo Pribula in our system last year, we would have been a lot better. We would have won a lot more games. We wouldn't have lost to Northwestern. We wouldn't have lost to UCLA. I'm not saying our offense was bad against UCLA, but we came out flat in that game. But we would definitely beat Northwestern in that game. It was more of a running style game. Indiana, we would have beat Indiana in that game. I'm not saying that Grunkemeyer played bad in that game because I think Grunkemeyer played great against Indiana, but especially late in that game, we needed more of a running threat. I mean, Grunkemeyer is a pretty solid runner, but not like the top tier runner that Pribula is. Pribula is a dual threat. That's what he's known for, being a dual threat guy. Grunkemeyer, solid runner, but he's more of a balanced runner and passer, in my opinion. But, I can ramble on about that all day. It's a good question. But in terms of talent-wise, Drew Aller, he's far and away better. I think Drew Aller is somebody to watch out for in the NFL ranks because if he gets under the right coach, if he can develop properly in a proper NFL offense, because the NFL offenses, they're all normal pro-style offenses, so they're going to put him in great spots, and he's got the talent to do it. So we'll see how he develops in the NFL, and I thought he was going to be a heck of an NFL quarterback just because of his stature and the talent that he has in that arm. I think it's going to be great for him. But, he broke his ankle. We'll see how he looks coming off that injury. He did get, I believe, signed or drafted by the Steelers. So, I'll be on the lookout for him for sure. I think he could make some noise in the NFL. But in terms of Pribula, I don't think he's better than Drew Aller. But in terms of the system, I think he fits a lot better. So, that's going to wrap up the Virginia Tech schedule here and predictions. We both have them going 9-3. So another team that we're pretty straight on with here. No disagreements. 6-3 in conference. Should be a solid year for Virginia Tech. Should be able to get the 10 wins. Whatever bowl game they go to, they probably get a pretty good bowl game here. I would assume getting 9-3, they probably get a pinstripe bowl maybe. We'll see what kind of bowl they do end up getting. At 9-3. But 10 wins. I think James Franklin can do it. Turns this program around in year one and builds some good mojo going into year two for Virginia Tech. And that's going to wrap up the Virginia Tech Hokies season preview for 2026. As you can see, me and Deshaun are both very high on Virginia Tech this season. I think the James Franklin era is going to be real here in Blacksburg. I think they're going to have a phenomenal season, and we'll see if they can find ways to win some of those big games. But I want to hear from you guys. How do you guys feel about Virginia Tech? Do you think the James Franklin noise is just hogwash and Virginia Tech's just going to be a below average team? Maybe they're just going to be mid, or I want to hear what you guys are thinking. Comment down below. Maybe if you guys agreed with some of our takes, I want to hear it from you guys as well. We got tons and tons of teams coming your way here in the ACC. Every single day, we'll be dropping these team preview videos. So make sure you guys are subscribed, like these videos, and continue to show your support here as we continue to move on throughout this college football preview series. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.